The mining station on asteroid K-17 wasn't special. It was old, dirty, and full of noise. Machines broke down often. Air smelled like grease and metal. The workers were tired, grumpy, and always waiting for the next day off. But one man worked differently. His name was Grant. He was human, the foreman of the station. People called him strange because he didn't talk much. He fixed machines faster than anyone, and he walked alone in places others avoided. That's how he found the cage. It started with a system failure. Deep under the mining floor, a power grid went dark. Grant followed the signal himself, moving through tight halls and dust-filled vents. Nobody had been that deep in years. He pushed open an old door. It groaned loudly like it hadn't moved in centuries. Inside was silence. The room was huge, cold, built of black stone and silver pipes. And in the center, surrounded by thick metal bars, stood a cage. Grant froze. Something moved inside. A shape. Large, still. Covered in thick hair and armor pieces. Bones hung from its belt. Its claws were long, dirty, and sharp. Its eyes were closed. Grant stepped closer, flashlight shaking slightly in his hand. Then the creature opened its eyes, bright yellow, watching. A slow growl filled the room. Grant didn't move. He didn't run. Instead, he said softly, "What are you?" The creature stood, taller than any alien Grant had seen. It looked like a wolf mixed with a warrior. Its body was covered in mud, dried blood, and rust. Chains hung from its wrists. It smelled like war, like something ancient, something forgotten. Grant took a step back. "How long have you been here?" The creature didn't answer. Grant noticed a panel on the wall, an old alien control pad. He wiped the dust. The screen blinked. Status: Contained name: Thorn last entry, 2946, standard years ago. Classification: High-risk Imperial Guardian owner, Empress. Sierra Grant blinked. Guardian, Empress. That sounded like something from a history book. He looked back at the creature. "You were hers?" Still no answer. Grant didn't leave. He came back the next day, and the next. Each time he brought something small: water, food, warmth. On the third day, he spoke again. "Do you remember her?" The creature finally moved. Closer. His voice was low and deep like stone grinding against stone. "I remember everything." Grant almost dropped his tools. "You can talk." "I speak many tongues," the creature said. "But silence was my only friend. For 3,000 years. He stepped into the light. His face was covered in scars. His fur was thick with dust and blood. His armor, though broken, still showed signs of royal design. "I was her shield," he said. "Her protector. Her executioner. Until they betrayed us both." Grant asked, "Who betrayed her?" The creature growled softly. "The ones who sit in power now. They feared her peace, feared her strength." Grant nodded. "And they locked you away." The creature looked at the walls. "They called me dangerous, a beast. They chained me here, and left me to rot." Grant looked at the creature again. This thing, this monster, wasn't just a weapon. It had memory, pain, honor. He stepped forward slowly. "I'm not your enemy," Grant said. The creature's yellow eyes blinked. "Then what are you?" Grant thought for a moment. "A foreman," he said. "But mostly, a man who thinks everyone deserves a second chance." The creature tilted his head. Grant smiled a little. "Also, you smell awful." For a second, nothing happened. Then, shockingly, the creature laughed. It was deep and strange, but real. Grant turned to leave. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said. "We'll start with a bath." The creature stepped back into the shadows of his cage. He said only one word: "Thank you." Grant walked back through the tunnels. Behind him, for the first time in 3,000 years, the cage didn't feel quite so cold. The next morning, the station buzzed like always, wires sparking, engines whining, workers shouting over broken drills. But under the noise, deep below the floor, a story, 3,000 years old, was waking up. Grant came back early. He walked alone again, carrying a large water tank, soap cubes, and a heating unit strapped to his back. His boots echoed through the cold tunnels until he reached the black stone room. The cage was still there. And inside, the beast sat in silence, arms resting on its knees, yellow eyes already open. It had waited. Grant stepped forward and dropped the tank beside the bars. "I wasn't joking yesterday," he said. "You need a serious bath." The creature sniffed. "You smell worse." Grant grinned. "That's welding grease and hard work. Yours is 3,000 years of rot." Thorn, the name from the old screen, stood slowly. Dust fell from his armor. "I forgot what water feels like," he said. "Good," Grant replied. "Because I didn't bring a hose." Grant opened the cage controls. A warning flashed red. "Danger. Do not unlock species. Class 7 Combat Guardian Kill. Record 1204. Confirmed." Grant stared at it for a second, then pressed unlock. The cage opened with a loud clang. Steam hissed from old seals. For a moment, neither man moved. Then Thorn stepped forward and stopped right in front of Grant. He was huge, almost twice Grant's size. His breath was warm, heavy, animal-like, but his eyes weren't wild. They were sharp, intelligent. Grant didn't flinch. "Come on, wash stations this way, into I." An old cleaning chamber. Thorn sat in a steel tub while Grant poured hot water over his back. Filth slid off in dark rivers. Bones fell out of his armor. Rust cracked away. Underneath the grime was silver, real silver. Thorn's armor, once sacred, gleamed softly under the water. "You were part of something big," Grant said. Thorn nodded. "The Empress, Syrah. She was more than a ruler. She ended wars. She fed stars." "What happened to her?" "Jealousy," Thorn growled. "She gave peace. They wanted control. They poisoned her people. Blamed me." Grant shook his head. "That's always the story, huh?" Thorn looked at him. "You humans, you weren't in the Empire." "No. We found your ruins, your tech, but not your people." Thorn's voice lowered. "She may still live." Grant turned. "After 3,000 years? I would know if she died," Thorn said. "I was bonded to her, mind and spirit. I would feel the silence." Grant poured another bucket over Thorn's head. "Then maybe she's out there waiting." Thorn closed his eyes. "I remember her face, kind, fierce. She sang when battles ended. You sound like you loved her." Thorn was quiet. Then he whispered, "I still do." That night, Thorn sat outside the cage, free now. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just stared at the stars through the ceiling vent. Grant brought him a blanket. Thorn didn't take it, but didn't push it away either. "You'll catch space flu," Grant joked. Thorn turned. "Why do you help me?" Grant thought about it, then said, "Because monsters don't remember songs, and they don't cry when they talk about queens." Thorn looked away. Grant added, "Also, you're starting to smell like real soap. That's progress." In another part of the galaxy, a monitor blinked. A message appeared on an old royal frequency, just static and broken code. But it had one symbol, the crest of Empress Syrah. A shadowy figure stared at it and frowned. "Someone has awakened the wolf." For the first time in 3,000 years, Thorn looked clean. His silver battle armor, once hidden under mud and bones, now gleamed under the soft lights of the outpost. His fur, once stiff with blood, was soft and dark. His claws shone like knives, polished and deadly. But the clean body couldn't hide the dirty truth Thorn remembered. Grant stood beside him, wiping his hands with a towel. "You look less like a monster now." Thorn didn't smile. "Monsters are not born from dirt," he said. "They are shaped by betrayal." He stepped closer to a mirror on the wall. His own reflection made him pause. "I was the last thing my enemies saw," Thorn said quietly. "And the first thing the Empress trusted." Grant leaned against the wall. "You were her guardian. You still feel loyal?" "I feel unfinished." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Thorn said something unexpected. "She used to feed the children of the poor from her own garden. After war, she washed blood from the palace floors herself." Grant blinked. "A queen cleaned floors?" "She said real rulers serve first," Thorn replied. "That's why they feared her." Later that day, the outpost scanners beeped. Grant walked over. A faint signal was blinking, encrypted, ancient code. But the symbol was clear. Royal crest. Empress Sira Thorn stood behind him. "That's her, or someone trying to be." Grant worked fast. "I can't open the full message, it's half scrambled." "It's enough," Thorn said. "She's alive, or in danger." Suddenly, another alarm. Red light. Unknown ship approaching the asteroid field. Grant's heart jumped. That's not a rescue ship. Far above, in a quiet war room, a dark-robed alien leader watched Thorn's image on a cracked hologram. "He's awake," she said coldly. "And cleaned?" Another voice replied. "The human helped him. Foreman Grant. Earth origin, no military. Rank," the woman hissed. "Kill them both. If Thorn finds her, the Empire will rise again." Back at the outpost, Thorn sat with Grant on a crate. "The Empress lived for peace," he said. "But peace makes enemies too." Grant nodded. "You think someone's trying to stop her return?" Thorn's yellow eyes burned. "I know it." He reached into a small pouch on his belt and pulled out something small. A shard of crystal. "This holds a piece of her voice," he said. He pressed it. A sound filled the room. Soft, distant, like wind and music. Then a voice. "To those who remember me, I forgive you. To those who still serve, I need you." Grant froze. "That's her." Thorn nodded once now, he said, rising. "We serve again." But as they prepared to leave, the lights went out. Boom, crash. The power grid failed. The roof shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then, silence. Then, footsteps. Not human. Grant grabbed a plasma cutter. Thorn stepped in front of him, claws out. From the darkness, red eyes blinked. A voice echoed. "Return to your cage, beast," Thorn growled. "Come take me." The power was dead. The lights were gone. The machines silent. Only the sound of footsteps echoed in the dark. Grant gripped his plasma cutter tightly. Thorn stood in front of him, claws out, body still like a statue. "3, Thorn whispered. "One on the roof, one by the vent, one in front." "How do you know?" Thorn didn't blink. "I remember the way they hunt." From the shadows, a voice hissed, alien and sharp. "The Empress is dead. Go back to sleep, monster." Thorn didn't answer. He pounced. In a blur, claws flashed, screams filled the hall. One soldier fell, armor ripped apart. Another fired a blaster. Grant ducked behind a crate as sparks exploded. Thorn grabbed the last attacker by the neck and growled. "Who sent you?" The alien spat. "She must never return." Thorn's eyes burned gold. "Then she will." Crack. Silence. They didn't wait. Grant slammed open the emergency door and together they ran through the lower tunnels. Lights blinked as backup power flickered to life. Thorn moved like he had never been in a cage. "Who were they?" Grant asked, panting. "Shadowborn. Old assassins. They worked for the High Council. Then we've got their attention." They reached the command room. Thorn locked the door behind them. Grant rushed to the signal station. "That old code from before, and I'm picking it up again, stronger now." The screen glowed. Origin, unknown star system. Status, distress beacon. Code, type, Imperial Royal. Voice signature match, 89%. Empress Sira? Grant stared at Thorn. "Is that her?" Thorn closed his eyes, then nodded. "She's alive." They didn't have a real ship, just an old mining pod. Small, slow, not meant for long trips. But Thorn didn't hesitate. "We go now." Grant hesitated. "We're not soldiers." "You're more than that," Thorn said. "You're a builder, and I am what they fear." As the pod launched into the stars, the outpost behind them exploded. A final message had been sent. "Thorn is loose. The Empress's guardian rides again." In the distant shadows of space, a woman opened her eyes. She sat in a dark chamber, skin pale, robes torn, breath weak, but her mind still burned. "Thorn," she whispered. "You heard me." Back. In the ship, Grant checked the nav system. "We've got weeks to go, maybe more." Thorn sat quietly, staring into space. "What happens when we find her?" Grant asked. "We save her," Thorn said. "Or we die trying." Grant nodded. "No offense, but I liked you better before. I was part of a royal rescue mission." Thorn looked at him. Then, to Grant's surprise, he smiled. The ship landed in silence. Black sand crunched under the landing struts. No trees, no water, only dust and bones. This was the signal's source, a planet lost to time. As Grant stepped out of the mining pod, his boots sank slightly into ash. The wind carried whispers, faint like voices speaking from graves. Thorn stood beside him, his armor shining in the pale light. But his eyes were cold. "I know this place," he said. Grant looked around. "What is it?" Thorn's voice dropped. "The Empress's final temple. After the betrayal, she fled here, to hide, to heal." He knelt and touched the ground. "Now it's a graveyard." They walked for hours, through ancient ruins and broken statues, each step deeper into a world built from silence and secrets. Bones lined the path, warriors, guards, even servants. All turned to dust long ago. Grant whispered, "What happened here?" Thorn didn't answer, but his claws twitched. They reached the gates of a broken fortress. Two giant statues stood at the entrance. Both were wolves in armor, like Thorn. One had its head missing. The other had claws pointing toward the stars. The bim. Doors were sealed shut until Thorn touched them. The doors rumbled open, dust flying in clouds. Light spilled through. Inside, the Palace of Bones. The palace was half destroyed. Walls crumbled. The ceiling cracked. But the royal banner still hung, torn but proud. As they stepped in, strange lights flickered. Then a hologram blinked to life. It showed the Empress, younger, smiling. Her voice filled the hall. "If you've come here, then I have failed. But if Thorn lives, then I am not forgotten." Thorn stopped moving. His chest rose and fell with slow breath. "I remember this message," he said. "She made it the night she vanished." Suddenly, the floor opened beneath Grant. He shouted, falling into darkness. Thorn jumped in after him, landing hard. They had triggered a trap. In a lower chamber, red lights glowed. Statues lined the walls, guards, their faces twisted in fear. A voice echoed, "Only the true protector may pass. Others will be turned to stone." Grant backed up fast. "What is this?" "Judgment," Thorn growled. He stepped forward. A beam of light scanned him. His armor lit up, symbols glowing from ancient energy. The voice changed. "Welcome back, Guardian." A door opened. Inside was the throne room. Ruined, cracked, but full of power. A single chair sat in the center. On it, a small piece of cloth. Royal blue, marked with blood. Thorn approached slowly. He touched it. "She bled here," he said softly. "She was hurt, but she got away." Grant looked around. "You're sure?" Thorn nodded. This was her signal. Her cry for help. Suddenly, a whisper filled the air. "She's not gone." The shadows moved. From behind the throne, a figure stepped out. Armor, pale skin, eyes like cold fire. A traitor. Thorn's body tensed. "I know you," he growled. The figure smiled. "Do you? You swore loyalty to her, and then I survived." Unlike you. Thorn stepped forward. Grant grabbed his arm. Wait! Too late. Blades clashed. The traitor moved fast, but Thorn moved like thunder. The fight shook the chamber. Stone cracked. Dust flew. Grant watched, frozen, then ran to the control panel on the wall. The beacon, the real signal source. He activated it. A pulse shot into space, far across the galaxy, somewhere dark and hidden. The Empress opened her eyes again. The beacon pulsed like a heartbeat. Far above the dead world, in a hidden chamber of metal and shadows, a single light blinked. Wires sparked. Glass cracked. A breathing mask hissed with every shallow inhale. And then, a pair of golden eyes opened. She was alive. The Empress. Not in a palace, not on a throne, in chains. Back on the surface, Grant stared at the control panel. The beacon still glowed. She sent that signal herself, he said. She's alive. Somewhere. Thorn stood in silence. His armor was scratched. His fur was burned. But his eyes were bright again. Alive in a way Grant had never seen before. I told you, Thorn said. I would feel her death. Grant nodded. Then we find her. Now. But before they could move, another voice echoed from the shadows. You're too late. The traitor, the armored one from the throne room, stepped out again, now backed by soldiers in black cloaks. Grant raised his plasma cutter. Thorn didn't move. You bound her in chains, Thorn said coldly. Where is she? The traitor smiled. Where she belongs. Below. In silence. A fight exploded. Grant ducked and fired. Thorn tore through the enemies like lightning. He didn't roar. He didn't scream. He fought like a ghost come back for vengeance. The traitor ran. Thorn chased. They followed him through the ruins, down into the deepest chambers of the palace. The air grew colder, older. Lights flickered like dying stars. Then, they found her, behind a wall of glass and metal, floating in a stasis pod, wires stuck into her spine. Her face was pale, but her eyes were open, watching. Thorn stopped breathing. Empress, he whispered. The pod's screen blinked. Status: suspended vitals. Weak drain. Active hostage value. High. She's not in a coma, Grant said. She's being drained, alive, but powerless. Open it, Thorn growled. Grant shook his head. If I break it too fast, it could kill her. Behind them, footsteps. The traitor returned, weapon raised, but this time it was Grant who moved first. He grabbed a metal pipe, slammed it into the wall controls, and shouted, Now! The pod shattered. The Empress fell forward, and Thorn caught her in his arms. Her eyes looked into his. Weak but not broken, you came back, she whispered. I never left, he said. The traitor aimed at them, but the Empress raised her hand. One last spark of royal power surged from her fingers, and the traitor was thrown across the room into stone and silence. Later, in the quiet, Grant helped Thorn carry her. To the ship. She was resting now, breathing, healing. She's going to make it, Grant said. Thorn nodded. He looked at the stars. We have one thing left to do. Grant raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Storm the palace, crush the council, and the Empire's biggest lie? Thorn looked at him. Exactly. The capital was quiet. Too quiet. From orbit, it looked like a shining city. Clean towers, golden lights, order, but underneath, fear. The High Council had heard the whispers. Thorn was alive. The Empress had returned. And this time she was not coming alone. The dropship landed without warning. Metal slammed against marble as Thorn stepped out, his silver armor glowing in the sun, his claws sharp, his eyes blazing with fury and purpose. Behind him walked Grant, wearing nothing but his tools and courage, and carried in Thorn's arms, Empress Sierra, alive, awake, scarred but unbroken. Across the city, sirens rang. Troops rushed to the palace gates. But the people didn't scream. They gathered, watched, whispered. They saw the old symbol on Thorn's armor. They saw the Empress lift her head, and they remembered. At the gates, a commander shouted, "This is a restricted zone. Drop your weapons." Thorn stepped forward and roared, not in rage but in truth. The ground shook, the wind changed. The soldiers froze, and one by one, they dropped their guns. Inside the palace, the High Council argued, "She can't be alive. She'll destroy us all. She'll bring back the old ways." They turned, too late. The doors burst open. Grant tossed a broken lock on the marble floor. "You forgot one thing," he said. "You locked away a wolf, but you didn't kill him." Thorn entered like a storm. The Empress walked beside him. At the throne she paused. Her hands shook, but she turned to Thorn. "You carried me out of darkness. Do you still serve?" Thorn knelt. "With my last breath." She turned to Grant. "And you, human, why did you help me?" Grant scratched his neck. "Honestly, you looked like someone who'd be worth fixing." She smiled. "Then rise. Both of you." She faced the crowd. The people. No crown, no speech, just truth. "I was taken, chained, forgotten. But one who was called a monster remembered me." She placed her hand on Thorn's shoulder, and one who came from the stars gave me back my heart. The crown, once cold and buried, was lifted, not placed on her head but carried in her hand. Then she turned, offered it to Thorn. "You bathed in blood for me. You fought with honor. Today I share my rule with you." Thorn bowed. "But did not take the crown. I was made to guard, not to rule." She smiled. "Then stay by my side and guard this galaxy." As the sun rose over the city, Grant looked out at the crowd. "Not bad for a foreman," he whispered. Thorn stood beside him. "Still smell like welding grease." Grant smirked. "Still better than smelling like 3,000 years of cage dust." They both laughed, for the first time, truly free. The Empress on her throne. Thorn standing beside her, armor shining. Grant leaning against a pillar, arms crossed. The camera pulls back, across the city, across the stars. A new empire rises, not with war, but with loyalty, forgiveness, and the courage of one human.